Hey folks, I'm totally not named Dan, though you can call me that if you want. And in the time where I've been without a locals, I've been playing online events run by Patriot Games in Sheffield and playing against people from all over the country, which, you know, it's not quite as competitive as the Sheffield events can be, but it's certainly a lot more than I'm used to from a locals. And I know webcam events don't have the best track record after the stuff with Jose Narono, but actually, oh, I've had no issues with these, and pretty much anybody I faced can vouch for the fact that I check ones. I check ones at really crucial times, so I am definitely not cheating in these events. Anyway, I've been doing this for a while, but so far I've only actually won the event once, and it is with this deck here, my Ragdoll. Talk about that, I'm going to bring in my buddy Yuna the Sheep.
Hey there, thanks for having me here for this.
Yeah, so Yuna, you don't play in the online webcam events. In fact, you haven't really played very much recently because you've been out with a whole bunch of illnesses, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, it's a shame.
But you have played against this deck, or at least earlier versions of this deck in locals, so you have an idea of how it plays, and just, well, he should be a good person to talk about it with, right?
Yeah, hopefully. And yeah, I remember seeing Ragdoll around a few times and it was always interesting to see.
So we'll get into the deck in just a second, but the last thing I want to talk about before we move over to the other screen is the thumbnail art for this is done by a guy named Alias, who I found on social media. I'll link him in the description down below, but I'll link his Blue Sky. I'm not going to bother with Twitter because screw that. Twitter's basically dead at this point.
True.
uh, but yeah, this is not necessarily the peak of what he can do. This is, I specifically requested the sketch style that he normally does rather than the fully polished art, but with still a bunch of flat colors added to it so that it looks a bit more like the recent Attack on Titan style art for UniVersus. So that's what we're going for there with the ragdoll art, and you'll see she's encased in flames, kind of going Super Saiyan a bit. There's a reason for that.
Mm.
If we hop on over to this deck list, you can see the specific key card of this deck is a one of Zeru's Flames. Those who know me will know I hate one-ofs. They are a really terrible idea in just about any deck. Any card you need to see, you should be running at least two of, ideally three. If you don't mind seeing more than one of it, you should definitely run four. That said, Zeru's Flames is a one check. We do not want to see it when we don't want to see it. And our character has this form once per game. Search your deck for one card and add it to your hand.
Yeah, you can always get up some shenanigans just searching your deck for anything.
Yeah, so we can find absolutely anything. I've been wanting to play this character since she came out, because it was clear she was going to be busted with something, but I never found the combo deck. Apparently, she was actually one of the people who headed up the Twisting Azure Inferno deck that got the card banned in Retro. So that's cool to know.
That is interesting.
But the only one I've found with her is when Yu Yu Hakusho came out, I saw Zeru's Flames and went, this card is insane. The only thing keeping it fair is that one check. So what we're going to do is we're going to put one copy in a deck, find it with Ragdoll, and now we never have a chance of checking it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Unfortunately, it doesn't quite work out like that. Turn one, you will occasionally see it. And in that case, I would say if you're not already down a game, probably best to just concede and go to game two.
Yeah,
Because
hitting a 2-check hurts, let alone a 1-check.
well, hitting the one check hurts, sure, but we can recover from hitting the one check and building poorly. What we can't recover from is losing our kill card. And
True.
we have no way to pick it back up from the discard pile. So, yes, you can play through, but it will be a long game and it will be a real struggle. I have won after checking the one, but I've only done it once. So there is a risk factor in playing this deck, but it's one card in 60. You are very unlikely to see it like that.
Yeah, but it's always going to happen at the worst times, it always seems, with these kind of things.
Well, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Other abilities on the character are enhanced once per turn. Reveal 2 cards from your hand. If the cards you revealed have the same name, this attack gets +4 or -4 speed. So we have basically 4 of everything, just to ensure that we get that as much as possible. But even if we don't see that, Zeru's Flame says response after you play an enhanced during this attack, your rival commits 1 non-character card in their stage. So essentially, every enhance you play is a stun. This is an enhance you can use as long as you have 2 cards in your hand. It doesn't actually ask for them to match. It asks them to match to get the +or -4 speed, but if you really need that extra enhance to get that extra stun, you can just play it for no effect.
Yeah, I think he did it a few times before against me with Zeru's, and I hated seeing that Zeru's Flame every time.
Yeah, Zeru's Flames is a crazy card. It's also very much worth noting it says non-character card, not foundation, not even foundation or asset. So not only can this commit out their stage of foundations, it can also commit their vertical maneuvering equipment so that they can't + or - speed on future attacks. And on top of that, it is the only card I can think of that can lock down Hange, because Hange uses backups as though they were foundations, the same way Mimic uses assets, and nothing commits backups. But this just commits any old non-characters.
Yeah, which is a really interesting thing it can do.
Yeah. The final thing this character does is flip 1 foundation as an enhance, look at the top card of your deck. So the significant thing with that is, again, it's another enhance, but if we're just poking with small attacks, we can see if that 1's coming up. We can do stuff to stop us hitting it. Likewise, we can do that on defense. It helps us know when we will and won't succeed blocks. It also helps us know how far we can push our turn. Mostly we are just doing it for the enhances, but it is still really useful information. And it also tells us when to use, if I zoom out a second, this fearsome transformations to ensure that we get the best possible draw off it.
Yeah, exactly. Because then if you know that you're going to drawing Zeru's Flame is at the top, you can just use that to go into it.
Yeah, but a lot of the time we just use it to say, is there an attack on top? No. We'll wait for the next attack to draw then. If we have like 3 attacks and we need 4 to kill, we then on every attack look at top card, go, do I draw this one? No. Next attack. Do I draw this one? No. Next attack. And so it becomes a lot more useful than just draw one. We can kind of pick and choose a bit.
Yeah. It's draw what you want now.
That's what Zeru's Flames does. Now, Zeru's Flames is a 7 diff, so we do have to commit a couple things for it, which is not ideal when most of our cards are stuff that do enhances to go with the Zeru's Flames. So we have a few things that ready themselves just to work with that. We have Acrobatic Style, readies when we force the rival to commit something. Oh, look, Zeru's Flames. We have, it flips to do that though. Then we have Weightless, which flips to ready a face-down foundation. Note, our character can flip any foundation. That's just any foundation, as long as we're prepared to blank it. And then we have Small and Limber. It readies whenever a card leaves our stage, which is usually via Nejire Chan of the big 3, sacrificing a thing for +1 damage and gain a health if it's blocked. But it can also be via Vast Hybrid going to our momentum, or via, if we scroll back up to the attack area, we've got Trinket here, adds to card pool for +4 damage.
Yeah,
now,
so plenty of ways to trigger it all.
Yeah, Trinket we don't really want to do till our last attack, or we can make our last attack real big. And I mentioned Vast Hybrid here. You'll notice there are only 3 of it. That's partially to make up for the fact that we've got only 1 Zeru's Flames. We've got that 1 extra spot we can take out. But mostly it's because we never want to see 2 of this because it's a unique 3 diff, and that just feels real bad.
Yeah, and because, Amajiki, you can't use multiple copies in the momentum either.
We actually kind of can. I forget the exact loop, but we actually can do something like that, where we have a Vast Hybrid in momentum and a Vast Hybrid on board if we've seen them over consecutive turns, where we say form once per turn, we get +1 damage, then we +1 to our check, then we add Vast Hybrid to our momentum, flipping the Vast Hybrid that was there, then we +1 our next check again. So we're now getting +2 to our next check, +1 damage to this attack, and on top of all of that, we've just played 3 enhances, and so committed 3 things.
Yeah, that's real strong.
So seeing them over consecutive turns is actually not bad for us. It's just seeing 2 on the same turn.
Yeah, makes sense.
But yeah, that's all sorts of stuff that can interact with Zeru's Flames. It's also worth noting it's a Fury, which means it can get the +1/+1 from Small and Limber. So it can be worth committing Small and Limber for it. And you can also use the effect of Warm and Bubbly on it, which is enhanced flip. If you've taken damage this turn, this attack gets -2 damage. In most decks, that's a purely defensive card. In this deck, This just says enhance flip for no effect because you don't take damage on your turn. Your opponent commits 1.
Yeah.
So that's wild. And then other things that combo with Zeru's Flames are we've got Lemillion of the big 3 here. Only gives +1 speed because Zeru's Flames is in mid and we've got no way to change its zone. But it's still got 2 additional enhances that do nothing to it that we can use. And then the nice part is our other attacks are all high or low, so they all get plus damage after the opponent's committed out.
Nice.
Then obviously fearsome transformations for the draw if we see that we've got good stuff on top. Multitasking is great because we ready one of their foundations for +1/+1, and then as a response they immediately have to commit again. So we just make them recommit the thing they just readied.
Yeah, that's a funny combo.
Yeah, that's funny as hell. And then finally we got basic training. Basic training isn't an enhance, but it is the one altered card of the deck, and it is just response once per turn after you play an attack, it gets +1 damage. So it just pushes through that tiny bit extra, and it's a 0 diff, so it helps us play out more foundations turn 1. That's all that's really there for.
Yeah, every day's got to have the basic 0 diffs.
So that's our foundations, that's our Zeru's Flames. Other things we've got, you'll see we have the really pricey card, Walk the Dog. This is officially an 8 diff, but because we can just completely lock our opponent down on that first attack, it always comes through as a 4. It's got stun 1, so again, we can multitasking on this for +1/+1, and then immediately make them committed again with a stun 1. It's got powerful, so if we don't kill in one turn, it becomes huge. And it's got draw a card for each copy of Walk the Dog in your card pool, which, I mean, usually will be maybe 1 or 2, but if we happen to draw the Zeru's Flames naturally, we can always tutor up a second or third Walk the Dog. So that draw becomes huge. It's not unreasonable to see 6 cards in a turn off Walk the Dog.
Either. That is very strong, and no wonder it's so expensive.
Yeah. I mean, it's like an $80 card at this point.
Jesus.
It is one of the most expensive cards in the game, outside of alt arts like Chrome's. Then we have Levi's Overhead Strike. Kinda doesn't combo with that. Kinda also doesn't combo with our other big attack. But it's just if the rival's lost health this turn, this attack gets -1 difficulty. So again, it's basically a 4 diff because our stuff is going through. After this deals damage, clear one other attack from your card pool. So when this hits, which it will do, we get rid of our Zeru's Flames, we get rid of our Walk the Dog, we get rid of whatever we need to, really. It just keeps our progressive difficulty down, it extends our turn a bit.
Yeah, it makes sense. Get rid of the Zero's Flames so that you can play more Walk the Dogs.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't combo particularly well with Ascend to Battle here, but I mean, it still stays in card pool with a 5 speed, and that's the thing, all of our attacks have huge speed anyway. So Ascend to Battle's Blitz, this attack gets +X damage, X equals the total printed speed of attacks in your card pool, is always getting at least +5 per attack, and it counts itself. So this card will always be hitting for at least 10. Realistically, we're likely to have 2 cards before it, so we're looking at sort of 15, 16 damage, plus any enhances we do. I think you're seeing why this is in here.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. It just does a lot of damage.
Yeah, this was the last attack added to this deck. It comes from AOT01, so it's a little hard to get hold of, because everything is in AOT01. Though being a UR, it's not as bad as some of the rares, at least.
Which is a weird thing to say.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing to say, but the URs are actually easier to get hold of. The rares are basically as rare as the secrets.
Guess that's why they're called secret rares.
Yeah, not secret ultra rares. But yeah, it gets stupid damage. It's already at a good speed itself. Yeah, you're probably going to be playing it on 8 difficulty. It's going to be a turn ender. You probably don't want to see more than one of them. Though actually, I have played 2 in a turn and killed that turn because, well, you got a 10 damage followed by a 15 damage. People are dying from that.
Yeah, exactly. Or if not, I'm like, how the hell are you not dead?
And if they somehow get to deadlock, EX2 is there as well.
So it will hit them.
Yeah. Ascend to Battle is a great card. It's a little difficult to play, but it's a fantastic finisher. And that's our attack lineup. But we also mentioned Trinket. Trinket goes to card pool for +4 damage. It also goes to card pool for -4 damage. If it stops a 4 damage throw to stop your opponent's game plan, that can be real good. It can just in general save you. But the other thing it's in here for is this has 2 symbols that basically nothing else in our deck has, or at least not attack-wise. So this confirms that we will have 5 different symbols in card pool, as long as we've played the Zeru's Flames and left it there, or played the Walk the Dog and left it there, which means we can use Teamwork for +5 more damage. And that's combined with the +4. So we're realistically looking at probably a 24 damage Ascend to Battle there,
which is most people's entire health.
No, not these days. Not post-attack on Titan, but it's the majority of their health.
Yeah.
Teamwork also blocks really nicely because your next block ignores progressive, but ultimately, it's not super useful as a defensive card. It's also not the best card in the deck because it only really works with Trinket. Well, we just run it for fun, you know? Sometimes it closes out that gap at the end.
Could have the power of friendship in there.
Yep. And also the power of victory, I guess. In this evil versus good. This is a 2 of. This was a pretty last minute addition to the deck. When I discovered that we had a weakness to Genkai's Guidance, 2 copies of this card went in as a possible searchable, or just something we might draw, so that we can hold this in hand to say, when we play our Zeru's Flames and they Genkai's Guidance us, we just go, nah, response, cancel your action ability.
Might need to try and find this into my decks because damn, do I hate Genkai's Guidance.
Yeah, Genkai's Guidance is rude as hell. But it's got Enhance as well, lose 2 health, your next attack this turn gets -2 difficulty and +2 damage, so it can just push through that last extra attack to kill as well.
Yeah, makes sense. Even though it's really just -1 difficulty because it stays in the card pool.
Yeah, absolutely, but it's also +2 damage, so...
Well, also with Levi, you could also just remove the good and evil.
No, I'm pretty sure it only hits attacks. Yeah. Clear 1 other attack from your card pool. I mean, that still hits any other attack that's in your card pool, but it doesn't remove the good and evil.
Nah.
Might be worth noting, though, that the good and evil doesn't share symbols with Zeru's Flames. So, if you cancel with this, you immediately have teamwork online.
Nice. And then that's more stuff for the response.
Yeah. That's yet another response on Zeru's Flames. And yeah, it's a very simple deck, but it's got answers to the one real answer to it in this evil versus good. So, there's not much people can do about it when it pops off.
Yeah, sometimes a deck doesn't need to be complex. If it's simple and it works, it works.
Yeah. And sometimes the complexity comes in things like that evil versus good, that just say no to the say no.
Yeah, could have the Uno reverse card.
Some of the craziest matches are ones where you have counters to their counters, but they have counters to your counters to their counters, and then you have counters to their counters to your counters to their counters, but at that point you don't draw the counters you need, and so your opponent wins the counter ditto. Fortunately, the only real counter I know of to this evil versus good is another evil versus good, and most people don't play a vast amount of it. But there is at this point an element of, does your opponent know the evil versus good is coming? If so, are they going to hold an evil versus good alongside their Genkai's Guidance? It's silly. But yeah, that is this deck. That is pretty much all for today. I've said just about everything I can about it. It's straightforward, but effective. But a little bit random.
It doesn't need to be complex if it works. There's no point overcomplicating your deck if it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, and when it works, it really works. That's all from this deck. Bye.
Bye.